Welcome to the Wing Life Podcast, where we talk about wing foiling and the lifestyles of those who enjoy this great sport.
I love when you find those. Like you throw a shotgun at someone and like a weird thing happens, dude. You never know. You gotta do double. I don't know how. Yes, see, I told you it's a double thumbs. I find those so much in Skype and stuff. People love, like, I make balloons go off. It's always the weirdest thing. I bet Peace does one. Peace usually does one too. Oh, balloons.
Well, hey, man, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah. Thought I'd introduce myself with some fireworks.
Yeah, why not? That's a good intro to the podcast, actually.
Yeah.
Well, hey, like I know you've had quite the year. I'm happy that we're able to have this conversation. Congratulations on being a new dad, and just thankful that you're here and that you're able to get back on the water and everything.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it has been an insane journey. A lot of the doctors use the term miraculous. I don't necessarily feel that that's like in line with what's going on, but the path of healing from what should be a devastating, like, and people die from accidents like this. So like to be able to go to the hatchery and like wing with my wife and have the baby and all, like we've done, like, this year's been insane. It's been an emotional roller coaster, like crazy, like you would not imagine.
Yeah, I can't believe. Yeah. How's your community in Hood? Like, I know it's a small spot. How supportive is it amongst your group of friends there?
Yeah, so our town is, I think like 8,000 or 9,000 people in the actual Hood River town. There's some outlying towns that are more agricultural that have a fair amount of other people. But so the valley's pretty tight. The wind community is pretty tight. We've lived here for a while. Kiteboarders take care of kiteboarders. It's really rad. So immediately the community rallied behind me like insane. Like I didn't eat a single bite of food at the hospital because people were like basically meal training a bunch of organic food and stuff for me in the hospital in Portland. They were like driving food out for me. We had a lot of support from my wife because actually what no one really talks about is like, it's a bummer for me going through the accident and like being in the hospital and stuff, but it's kind of like a way bigger bummer on my parents and my wife and stuff. So like they need just as much support during this time as the person that's in, like, obviously the devastating injury is like a bummer too, but like the other person is the person that really deals with all that stuff in the long run. Like you think about like worst case scenario, you like die, like it's over for you. I mean, yeah, I don't know. True. Depends on what you believe, you know, like maybe it's not over for you. We don't know. But like your journey is with that situation has now moved past that situation. The people that are left to deal with it, that is where the people need assistance. So my wife needed a lot of help. We had a lot of friends reach out for food, for fun, for all kinds of stuff. Like I had easy access to cross-country skis all winter if I wanted to try to go ski, which was a mess. I did try a bunch, but I'm not supposed to fall down and hit my head. And the first thing I do is like put skis on. I'm an idiot. And then we had the internet's crazy, right? So I had a GoFundMe started by a good friend of mine, Colleen Carroll, that like kind of like blew up, I guess. I don't know. I was in a coma, so I don't even really know what to tell you. I woke up and was like, whoa, I could not look at it. It would just make me cry because it would just touched me so much that like so many people cared. It's so weird to get messages from people that are like, hey, you might not remember this, but like in Puerto Rico this one time, you taught me how to do a front roll like 15 years ago, and I'll never forget that. And so I gave you $20 for your GoFundMe, and you're like, this is so wild how wide you think you're just like this little drip, and then it turns out that when everyone needs to help you, it turns out you've like kind of made a difference. And that was like really hard for me to emotionally deal with at first. We had that, and then we had a lot of help, thank God, because my family doesn't live here. We like moved to Hood River. My wife's family doesn't live here. Her brothers live here. So we had a couple family support members, but really tricky. And then I was not that fun to be around. I was really mean. I would yell at all my friends, and like I was really judgmental and really harsh on people, and like I was like not that fun to hang out with unless I was talking about what I wanted to talk about, and that's what we're doing. And it's like so crazy. Like two of my really good friends, we had to like like they asked me several times, like, hey, can you just leave my house? And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I do. I'm like not having fun over here. Like I'm mad. Like I don't know why I'm
Mm-hmm.
mad. It makes no sense. So yeah, community was everything. It's really important. It's I mean, and then what's crazy, man, in between there, like the thing that happened with Alex Blockinger on the pier, the thing happened with Lucas on the shark thing. So like I was talking to all these people because I had come through and out of the hospital and all this stuff. It was just this weird time. So the community support was really important. Yeah.
Awesome.
Massive.
Well, I'm glad they were there, and you're absolutely right. Like the support, like I went through a near fatal motorcycle accident in 2009, and it was my mom, my brother, and my friends who were there, and we're not always nice, going through head injuries and going through all these complications and problems, and
No.
it's that support and love and help for them to help us through. Because you're right, like our situation would, if our situation was to end, it's all the support network that needs support to help the support that they gave. It's
Yeah.
crazy, but
You, you know, you think about people when they're like going through terminal illnesses, you're like, oh my God, that must be so terrible. It's terrible for everyone involved. And like the support is not
mhm.
just for the person that's going through the thing. Like that is important too, but it's important that they have a system built around them that can like push that system up a little bit. It's really hard. It's really hard. Yeah. It's
Mhm.
something I don't wish on anybody, but it's maybe like the best thing that ever happened to me. So like I would never change the accident ever in a million years.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about how you came to that conclusion?
I
I feel the
woke
same
up from
way,
the
but
coma and said it like right away. Like I don't know where
really,
it came from.
yeah,
Yeah, it was
okay.
like really crazy. Like something about, I don't know if it was the brain injury or certain circuitry turned on when you have a near death, or I can't really explain it other than like I was possessed. I was like spouting about how I thought all influential people maybe had some type of chemical imbalance in their brain that led them to their power of influence, because I could just talk and sway and just like charge, and I had all this like I knew exactly what I wanted to, like it was like crazy. I was like, my journal is like notes of a crazy person, and I'm like, whoa,
Mm,
if you're crazy, too crazy, they put you in like an insane asylum, or they like put you in jail, right? Or you turn into a criminal. Or if you're just crazy enough, you're like Steve Jobs, or you're like freaking
mhm.
Donald Trump or stuff like that. So like you sometimes that slips through, and we make the crazy people the CEOs, and like because they're like charged and they're like energized and all this. And I was like, man, I know my brain injury got me to this weird state that I'm in, but like I bet a bunch of trauma can get you here. I bet like starvation and like all that stuff can get you there. You think about like those religious guys that go on those hunger fasts for like months. You're like, you're not telling me they're not having some crazy things going on in their brain, and they're saying like,
Oh yeah.
we're talking to the spirits. I was like, I'm right there with you. I'm not talking to the spirits, but like I see how that could really solidify in really fast. And so it was just kind of like an epiphany about how none of that was in my control, it didn't feel like. And
Mm.
so the revelation of this is the best thing that's ever happened to me was like instantaneous. I was like, oh my God, I'm not dead. And then I was like, what? I'm like alive. And I was like, it was just like, I could not have been happier. It was like a full return. I got to come home before Christmas. It was like, it was crazy. It was like a rebirth. The first bite of pepperoni pizza, I cried. Like,
Yeah.
it was like I was like a kid, or I don't even know how to explain it. It was like insane. So while this is all happening and I'm like learning how to walk and having all these struggles, I was just so grateful for everything that I couldn't really be upset about anything. And then also I'm a competitive person with myself, and I'm just like an athlete. I think I like doing hard things, whether I like to admit
Mhm.
that or not. And so what I thought of this was, is I was just like, oh, this is a super hard thing that I have to do. That's like not fun, but it's like, it's a challenge. And like, I know I can beat this injury. I know I can. And so it just like motivated me a lot. And so I was able to
Mhm.
kind of stay away from the blues. Plus, I had a brain injury to the right side of my brain, not the left side of my brain, which this side is where a lot of your emotions and like internal thoughts and all that stuff, is I hit my face really hard right here. And that side was off, like completely off. So the guy that was awake was the left side of my brain, who was like logical and like just like yell at you because you don't see that, like, don't say, you're just saying your problems, you're just giving me excuses, like get rid of these excuses. I was like super logical psycho guy. So like I think that also helped stave off the super, oh no, this is the worst that happened to me, because I was just like, what do I have to be bummed about? Like I have like all this money from the GoFundMe, and like my hospital bills aren't that bad, and I get to go home for Christmas, and I'm alive, and like my wife's pregnant, and my wife told me in the hospital she knew she was pregnant while I was still in the coma, so bummer for her. She had no idea like what was going to happen and like what the future of our life was like, and thank God it went really well. But like, so I was like, yes, I got a baby. I'm like, everything was like, I left the hospital in a wheelchair, like so happy though. It was so weird.
Yeah. Can you call it almost like a mental or an emotional reboot? Almost like we got to delete stuff, and then you get to you get shown 2 or 3 things that are just absolutely phenomenal, and they fill your whole computer hard drive rather than all the stuff or something. I don't know. It's kind of like a concept that I sort of had before. It deleted a whole part of the past, and it allowed me to like be more present and be more happy about the future, I think.
You had a brain injury then?
Yeah, 2 TBIs from motorcycle and car accident. Yeah. And me, I had a right hemisphere brain experience. So my left part of my brain, the talking part, shut down, and it was just the part that sensed like I would be in awe of a leaf, and I would sit outside for 2 hours and just be mesmerized by how the leaf and how it felt. And my talking part of my brain shut down, so I didn't have the part that would get in my way. I just had an action-oriented person who felt everything, and the epiphanies just flowed into my brain about rehab, because I went to school for kin. So I was like, imagine if we did this and this and this, and this would help this, and I would look it up and it existed. I was like, whoa, that does exist. So that's what I did by myself in the woods, with my mom being my caregiver and my brother coming to visit. So it's crazy.
That's rad. I've had a lot of conversations, because I was very openly sharing like, holy shit, I have a brain injury, and they gave me my phone back, which I was like on the internet immediately. It was just so terrible.
Stay away.
But so I had a lot of outreach from a lot of people that had like all kinds of variety of situations, and like talk to people that have similar things, not similar injuries. It is so wild what can happen when you bonk your head. Like, what you described to me sounds like you're like on freaking LSD basically. Mm-hmm. And then like what I would describe what I was on, it felt like I was on like cocaine and ecstasy every day, all day. Like I was just mania out of my mind. So like it's crazy that it's just a couple chemicals off in your brain while it's healing, or a couple things get switched on or off. It changes everything. It's so crazy how delicate the balance of our existence, this hallucination we call life, where you like can agree that there's a microphone here and like audio works and all this stuff. It's like, it's just really wild. And it was really eye opening. And like you said, massive perspective shifts, and I got through it all, and I can still kiteboard and do all the, I mean, I don't kiteboard that much. Honestly, I wing way more than I kiteboard at this moment. But it's wild. It's been amazing. And now I hold my little son in my hands, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is so crazy.
Yeah, let's go there. How, obviously first time dad. How is that?
Yeah, about what you'd expect. There's a whole bunch of like, oh, I love this thing more than I've ever loved. It's not more than I've ever loved anything. What I describe it as is a new. So you ever play like video games where you have like a character and you can unlock skill trees and upgrade the character? So like imagine you with a love skill tree, and like you have all kinds of different loves. You have like parental love, you have like love for a pet, you have like love for your spouse, you have like infatuation, you have like lust, you have all these different levels of love, right? And you kind of understand most of them. Well, this one is a new one for me. It's like I don't want to make out with him, and I don't want to like squish him like a pet. I want to like, I don't understand what it is. It's not a parental love. It's weird. It's a new love that unlocks. So that's pretty cool. You just want to like stare at the baby and just be like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And it's super stressful because you have so many unanswered questions, and the internet is filled now with things that you should be doing this. You should be, if you want your baby to be smart, you have to do that. Like, I imagine my parents, when I was born in the 80s, were not assaulted daily with like, here's how you're not being a good enough parent. Basically, is they're helpful tips. Don't get me wrong. They're trying to help you and spread knowledge and awareness. But when you consume that stuff as an upcoming parent, it just makes you just be like, holy man, there is a lot of stuff that I got to figure out. And like, and then, you go through the whole birth, which is a full traumatic experience for both people. Like, that is a crazy day. And they just give it to you and they're like, all right, go home. You remember, did you study up well? And you're like, here we go. And so then, I have issues with anxiety from the brain injury still lingering depression, anxiety. I have definitely some echoes still from that accident that was like 9 months ago. So that can start like worry cycles with the baby. But then in some ways it gave me purpose, which took away some of that. So in some ways it's like a great thing. We don't sleep. It just doesn't, like, you're in a time zone warp where you're like, is it 11 in the afternoon, 3 in the morning? Should I go fishing? Like, do I need to be at the hatchery? Do I need to make breakfast? Like, is it 5 in the afternoon? It makes no sense. But you all you're doing is keeping the thing alive. And then, the complications begin, the mayhem begins, or the adventure, I guess, or however you want to think of it.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Like, congratulations, by the way, on
thank you
on being able to, like, there's two different ways to look at situations, obviously, and to look at it the way you did and to work through it. Like, a lot of us athletes attack some of these problems or situations that we happen to find ourselves in and be positive to work through. Like, congratulations for doing that. And I'm super happy that you had the support that you did.
What's the worst? Woe is me. Oh, woe is me. And like, I feel like here's the deal though. When I was in the hospital, there was definitely woe is me people. Like, they were people that were there that had not maybe the best fitness or not the best outcomes, or I'm not sure, or the best, like, oh my goodness. And their mindsets were very much like, why did the universe do this to me? Why is the universe, why me? Woe is me. And kind of like not assaulting, and nothing against the hospital. They do a great job, but they're really risk management, right? So like, at least here in the United States, like, they're scared of being sued and they're making sure they're covering all their bases. So like, they're going to come in and they're not going to walk in and tell you like, hey, guess what? In like 6 months, you're probably going to be able to like swim again. They're going to be like, ooh, we're not going to say you can do anything, because if you do it based on what we say, you could get hurt and then we could be in trouble. So they're very like, they're not telling you they're not saying you can't do anything, but they're not encouraging you to do lots of things. And the one thing you can do is sit in your bed and turn on the TV, which has all this terrible like advertisement and like news channels. And like, I just don't know that is like a great place for a woe is me person to spend some time. So I do see that is a tricky part with the injuries, the brain injuries, the life things. It's really hard. And there are definitely two types of people. They embrace it and attack it. And I believe this is something that came out of the brain injury. I think the universe is happening for me. That is just how I view it now. Like, I just refuse to believe that the universe is happening to me, and I'm going to be reactive and bummed about it. I'm going to say it's happening for me, and there's a reason for this annoying thing that's happening to me, or this guy that cut me off in traffic, and now I'm going to like go slower and I'm going to miss that speed trap and not get a ticket. I don't know. Like, I just believe now that like, there's no point in viewing it as a why me. It's pointless. It's all in your mind, and it's just like ruins everything. It's freaking really hard to really embrace that. Truly, it was way easier when I had a brain injury mania, when I was just like, yeah. It's harder now, but I still try to remember that. Number one thing out of the brain injury is it's truly a blessing. Life, like, just all of it, like whatever is happening, it's just like, be grateful for it.
No, it's exactly. And I actually had a lot of arguments with because I had to go to a psychotherapist or psychologist during this process of insurance.
I went to them.
And stuff. And she was like, what happens if you don't make it? I said, I'm going to make it. I said, what happens if you don't? I said, could we talk about the part that I do make it? What would be really fun for me to do after? I said, no, I want to go here. And it was just, I think what we were fortunate is to have a lot of love and support. And that, I think, made a huge difference in the hospital. When you have love and support from family and friends, it took care of all of those other things. And I didn't have to worry about a thing. All I had to do was focus on getting better. And then it was just like a life mission. They said, this actually matters. Like this, like work doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Like this is like an accomplishment that I can hang on my tombstone when I leave here. Like that's
for sure.
How cool that, and it's cool to meet fellow people who go through the same thing, because it's such a life-changing thing. And yes, it's very difficult. But there's something about it. I don't know. Like after that, I didn't know what I wanted to do because I felt I had accomplished what I was meant to accomplish. It's like I did it. Yeah. I'm done now.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I have to do something else now.
Yeah. How long did your recovery process take, if you don't mind me asking?
Like I started windsurfing 3 or 4 years in, but it took like the whole process took 8 to 9 years. And like 10, 15 doctors telling me I'll never lift over 100, forget about any sports, like probably the same stuff you heard.
Did you suffer, or did you need orthopedic surgery and like screws and plates and all that in your hips and that stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. My pubic symphysis is bolted. My right SI joint is bolted, and my left is okay. But so far, no complications. Everything it healed. I went to a chiro and he said, how the heck did you guys do it? Like, your pelvis looks, if you took away the bolts, it looked like it had never been broken. Yeah. So a lot of holistic care matched with traditional care was paramount. But yeah, I don't know. Like stuff happens for a reason, and it brings you somewhere.
How much, this is maybe a hippy-dippy question, but like, sure, how much do you think that your belief that you were going to get through this injury, and you were telling your okay, so by you, I mean your brain. You are consciously telling your brain that you are going to make positive strides and get through this, right? So you were, as a person, you weren't like, I'm never getting through this. This sucks. Woe is me. You were like, I'm going to crush this, right? Mm-hmm. And how much do you think that mindset actually made your body fix your pelvis, where the guy's like, I don't even know what happened to your pelvis. And you're like, I don't know either. I just am like a miracle. Because I believe 100% that like I laid in the hospital and pictured the little brushy scruffer, the spray brusher guys that are like in that advertisement from the 80s, the little scrubby brushies. I imagine them on all my bones, like fixing all my bones. Every second I could imagine, I was like, I'm fixing my bones. I'm fixing my bones. I'm fixing my bones. And they're like, well, all your pelvic fractures healed like really quick, and like everything's like in the right spots. Like, I don't think we need to do surgery, even though we thought we did. Awesome. And I was like, shut up. And they're like, you're a miracle. And I'm like, nuh-uh. So I feel like part of it is mindset. I feel it's really important. And I don't think people, I mean, they talk about it, but in the hospital, no one comes in before they give you your medicine and gives you like a mindset coach that says like, this is how we're going to get your mind through this battle. It's like, here's how we're going to get your body through this battle. Here's how we're going to address your pain. Here's how we're going to address your food. Here's how we're going to help you poop. But we're not going to talk about like kind of what's going on mentally in this process, both in depression and whatnot, and what you can do to change your mindset to make your healing go way faster. I think what's up here really matters. I think it's really important.
For me, like the first thing my mom brought to the hospital was a picture of a healed pelvis, and we put it right beside my bed. And through the process of one of the epiphanies I had, it's like, if you hang your hook, and this is for everything. This is the skill you want to learn. This is a move you want to land. This is something you want to do. But I hung my hook on, let's say, destination B, and I was in A. And when I was arguing with this psychologist, it was like, the path to B, I don't get to choose, but I get to choose the destination. So when my destination is set, and if I follow Google Maps, like my buddy and I, John, would go on these crazy gyps adventures when the Google was terrible. It would send us down logging roads and all this stuff. We knew we were going to get there. So if you can set your mind on the destination and hook into that, and then just trot, what that does it allowed me to have fun with the process of getting to the
That's what I mean.
destination, because
The adventure is the
yeah,
journey is the fun part.
exactly.
Everyone thinks it's destination. Their destination. The journey is all of it. That's the
It's
fun.
supposed to be
That's the
fun.
part of it. Yeah, like
Yeah.
man, you climb the mountain. Yeah, you remember when you got to the top for like 1 minute, but you're gonna remember the process of getting up and down the thing way more than you did that moment that you got to where you were going. It's yeah, and like I said, I agree with you. It lets you focus on the fun of it, like kind of like
Yeah.
let go of the stress and anxiety around, oh no, what do I do? It's like, well, just figure it out.
Yeah, because like life is short and not everybody has the opportunity to go through such an event such as this to see behind the curtain that otherwise a lot of people don't get to see. So on if you want to look at it on that side, and yeah, it might be a little spiritual, a little woo woo, but this is how deep down the rabbit hole you need to go in order to stay positive. And to answer your question about belief, I think a belief is one of the tool sets in your box that you use, and you have to believe things that other people say are impossible. You have to believe things that your doctors say are impossible, because so many times we get surprised tomorrow about, oh, we didn't know it would rain at 3 o'clock, but
Yeah.
like we don't know. We pretend that we know, but
It's funny that
deep
you say
down we
it's
have
funny
no
that you say
idea.
you're talking about the belief. You're like belief. I'm like, man, turns out I've been working on this as a pro kiteboarder. I have to believe that I can land this trick that no one is either
Mm-hmm.
landed or like I've never landed. You know, there's tricks that were really hard that like needed to be done. They didn't need to be done, but like to win contests, you have to keep getting better and better and better. And so like at some point, you have to believe in the impossible to make the impossible happen. So I've been practiced at that for a while. So it was really it
Mm-hmm.
was like an easy application. It was like, oh, I know how to win this contest. I've been doing this for like a decade. It was just like the new contest is learn how to walk. Let's smash this one. That one's easy. We're gonna win for sure. And I had a ticking time bomb. Yeah. So since he got pregnant like 2 weeks before the accident, so basically the baby was gonna
Wow.
be born. I mean, the baby was born on July, 11 days early, but I was like, yeah, so like I had to beat him so that I wasn't a hot mess when the baby came because there was no way I was going to, well, it's not my choice, but I made a selfish choice to get in the accident. I don't remember the accident. So like I made a selfish choice to do that though. Right. And so like
Mm-hmm.
my wife dealt with all that in the hospital, all the grief, all the stuff. She like dealt with me when I was an insane person. Like it was crazy. So then I was like, oh man, I can't like then fork her with the bill of like the child on top of all of that. So my goal was like, I need to get some semblance of an ability to like get my life in accordance so that I can help with the baby. Cause like she's
Yeah.
already done so much this year. It's too much. It's too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a nice way to look at it, in the
Timer.
sense that you, yeah, exactly. Timing's timing. How was your first, let's say, wing foil or foil session back on the river after that?
Oh my gosh. I cried like 1,000 times. Well, so
Mm-hmm.
like I cry all the time. I'm surprised I haven't cried at this moment. I was an emotional person beforehand, but like the right side went asleep, but then he woke up and then I've been trying to make him wake up and then he was like, "Oh, I'm awake all the time now." And so like I was just crying all the time.
Yeah.
It was kind of sick. I would wake up and put on sad music and just cry for like an hour and since he would wake up and be like, "What are you doing?" I'd be like, "Nothing.
Nothing.
I'm just having so much fun crying." Um it was a weird stage. Anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, we went early. So the doctors were like, "Hey, man, you're not going to be able to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to, like, I couldn't, I had a lot of dizziness. I couldn't really balance that well. I broke my pelvis and my sacrum and my lower vertebrae. And like they said,
Wow.
they're like, we should get an MRI for your knee because we think you we think you blew your MCL. And I was like, I'll tell you if I blew my MCL. And it's like, I did not let them do the MRI or look at the knee. I was like, look, it's going to be I probably smoked my leg for sure. Like I did something, but I know knee injuries take a while before you suss them out. So I'd like to like maybe not do knee surgery right now. And like, let's heal from the brain injury first and we'll deal with the knee surgery later. And,
Mm-hmm.
so I had a bunch of host of issues that I was dealing with physically and physical therapy and all this stuff building up to this. And I was just like, one day I was just like, I feel like I'm can do the thing. Like I feel like I built up enough stuff. We had gone cross country skiing. I'd been hiking through like a field of like thigh or like chest deep snow. I'm putting my body through the tests in ways that are low impact. And I've been swimming in the pool, doing all my physical therapy exercises. I'm getting a little bit stronger. So I made Sensi. I was like, you're driving me to Rufus today. It was like so cold. We were in 5.4s, gloves, booties. It was like freezing. I was like, we're going in the river. She's like, are you sure? I was like, take me to the Rufus. And like, I made her go. She went too. She's like pregnant at that point. So I went out. I got up pretty quick. I was stressed. I like wanted to capture it all. So I did a bunch of filming stuff. We did a bunch of weird, because a bunch of stuff's going on. And then I went out and I got up like right away. I'm riding a really big board. So I'm riding like 125 liter downwind sup. It's 25 wide. So it's a really wide downwind sup. It's one of the Nash hover downwind boards. It's super stable and a lot of volume, because what the two things that I can't do at that time, and I still have trouble with, is balance and funneling power through my spine and thorax. So taking the power of the wing and forcing it down through your body, which is essentially a mast, being a mast, and driving it into the board, into the foil, therefore like going upwind hard and being able to hold power and being able to like lean back into the wing and all that stuff. Like that wasn't really something that was too comfortable for me. Twisting was tricky still. So I was really careful. I got right up on my giant board because it's like a boat. I like got on it. I was like, okay, we're up. I popped up, hydrofoiled like immediately. It was pretty windy. I was like, sick. I'm freaking killing it. I got like right up. I was like, yep, haven't forgotten how to do this. Great. I winged. We were at Rufus in the cold. So generally you want to be careful with water safety. There wasn't a ton of current, so it wasn't that big of an issue. But I winged over to the Washington side, which is like on the other side of the river. And the wind kind of got spotty, and I tried to do a jibe to toe side and fell. And then I was like, okay, so now I got to get up switch, which was really hard. I couldn't get up switch. So I was just like kind of like struggling. And then I tried to like knee ride for a bit and then get up regular. And then I couldn't do the jibe. And then I finally, after like 45 minutes, kind of between knee riding and a little bit of toe side riding, which really hurt my back, the twisting, like the try to drive upwind toe side, but hold the wing and like twist your spine. I was like, not that fun. And I limped my way back to Oregon and like made it to the shore and was like, oh my God, and went in immediately. It was freezing. Went in the car, high heat, like I think I went to sleep. Like I think I put my gear away and fell asleep, and since he had to drive me home, because like sometimes you just like when the brain injury gets overloaded, I just sleep. So it was a lot, but it was pretty rewarding knowing that I could do it. I was like screaming, super psyched, and then I was like not so psyched, and then I was like puking, and then I was like, yeah, it was a lot. It was like I did it just to prove that I could do it. I was like, screw the doctors. Like, I don't care what they say. They say I'm not going to swim. I'm not going to walk on unstable surfaces. They're like, you're not going to be able to do all this stuff. And I was like, I'll show you. And that was I want to say it was in March. So it could have been in April, like towards the end of March, beginning of April. But the accident happened at the end. I came home from the hospital like just before Christmas on May, like the 20th. So it was only like 3 months after the accident. So I should not have been able to go winging, but I'll show them. Tell me I can't go winging.
Yeah. I used to go windsurfing and not tell my physio. And then she would be like, oh, wow, you got some tight this and tight that. And what happened? Oh, I was just walking around. Because in order for us to get better, I think you have to slowly push the envelope. And because or else, like, there's so many people, especially in the healthcare in Canada, that general population, people who are more sedentary in their lifestyles, like, even though we're hurt, we're still more active and more mobility and strength than somebody who has chosen a different lifestyle. So it's like we have to be able to push the envelope a little bit to get back to where, like, your goal obviously is to get back to where you were, to do the same things, to be better at certain things, to maybe even be better than you were before. Like, so it's all definitely all part of the process. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's scary, but yeah.
Well, I read while I was in the hospital. Thank God, I should have lost my eye. It was like they were going to cut it out and throw it away, but like somehow some surgeon saved it with some crazy surgery, and they were
Wow.
not sure about my vision. Like some people have lots of double vision. I basically hit this super hard on the ground. And I was able to read like pretty quickly. It's pretty sweet. So
Wow.
I was reading Owen Wright's book about his traumatic brain injury that he suffered while he was surfing and his recovery, and kind of like when he got over the acute, really gnarly issues of the brain injury. Like we're talking like a bit out. He was getting kind of flogged and was like really worried about like getting his head stirred up and like kind of having some like symptoms coming back from getting like kind of beat up in the waves and stuff. And like I met Owen 5 months before my accident on Fiji. Just randomly, I was coaching on the island and had this crazy talk with him about his brain injury, about what it was like to surf in the WSL finals and win that event, and like so much crazy stuff. And I was like, whoa, that's so crazy. Brain injuries are crazy. And then like 5 months later, I hit my head and had the same like situation. Well, some of the same situation. And what I took away from that book was one of his mental coaches and physio guys was like, it's good that you're having that happen. And he's like, why would that be good? And he's like, you're learning that what are the consequences of you're not taking severe injuries to your head anymore. We're not talking about catching hillside edges, hitting the concrete. We're not skateboarding, dropping down 10 stairs. In Owen's conditions, yeah, waves are hitting pretty hard and you can hit the reef. So he had to be really careful. But like, it's good to see that you can take a little bit of a beating, what the consequences of that is, and then readjust moving forward. So I used the time on the water, oh my God, I went winging and I got so dizzy that I threw up in the river multiple times. Like, not fun to be like, you have to end your session on your knee riding, dry heaving in the river. You're like, why did I do this? And then you can't drive yourself home. You have to it's a mess. But then I kind of learned what my new limits were. I kind of learned what were the consequences of pushing to that extreme. And then that allowed me to kind of like safely approach those. And just like when you take in like breaths and you're like expanding tissue, or like a lobster growing, like you think about what are they, crustaceans, I guess, crabs, like when they're molting, or there's uncomfortable pressure when you're growing, right? And then you break that tissue and you like expand and you become more like, and that's important that you push through those little moments of like uncertainty, severity. And I'm not saying you should go out and hit your head again by any means. I'm just saying, I think living an active lifestyle and your doctors where they're at, where what they think they would recommend a normal patient, is very different. I thought it was hilarious. They'd be like, you can't wing, you can't snowboard, you can't mountain bike, you can't do any of the things you love to do, but I'm going to see you next Thursday in our appointment in Portland. So you're going to drive your car in the hospital, or drive your car, or like, I couldn't drive my car, but I could be driven in a car. And it was pretty quick that I could drive a car, like honestly. So the doctors were totally okay with the risk of me getting in a car accident, which everyone in the hospital was there because of car accidents. All the brain injury people were like, car accidents or strokes. It was one or two. It was no paragliding accidents. I was like a novelty in the hospital. All the patients wanted to come see the guy that fell out of the sky or whatever. But, they were okay with that. They were like, yeah, you can drive in a car eventually. Like, yeah, no problems. Like, but you can't catch an edge on a snowboard. It's like, well, come on, bro. Like, let's adjust our look of what risk looks like for people who live risky lives already. Like, I already lived a risky life. My level is a little bit different than some other people's, not base jumping, but I'm not scared. Like, I'm not like, oh my God, my head. I wear a helmet for sure all the times on the water now. Guess why? Two big things. They stop you from getting hit and having brain injury or whatever issues. Two, I've had so many freaking stitches in my head from the foil, because even if the non-sharp parts touch you, it's like a PSI hit to a really tight skin spot. It splits right open. You need 3 or 4 stitches always. It's so annoying. And it's always on some stupid toe side turn or something dumb. and you have to go to the hospital. And in America, stitches cost you like $500. It's the most messed up thing. So
Seriously.
like, yeah. I mean, look at this one. I have a scar like right here. That's from a surfboard, but not a foil. But I like, dude, I get stitches all the time. So like, helmets are sick.
Yes. Little mention to Forward Whip. We just had them on not that long ago. For water impact protection, company from France. We went all the way through helmets and different kinds of helmets and gear. Definitely very important for foiling and what's to come, right?
Helmets and flotation. Those are two things that they like, look, like you can say whatever you want to say about, I don't need those two pieces of equipment. You can say they restrict your mobility. You can say they're annoying with the wind. You can say, I hate them, whatever you got to say. I don't care. You can make your own choices, but it's pretty easy to knock yourself out on the water with the foils and the sharp stuff. It's pretty easy to lacerate yourself on the water with that sharp stuff. And it's pretty easy to sink if you're unconscious. So any amount of flotation is not just going to help you. It's going to help the people that come to save your ass when you're in a mess. When your friends come to try to like, and your friends might not know water rescue. The guy that was winging with you might be just like a 65-year-old guy who's just doing his best. And so like any amount of help in flotation is great. And like wetsuits help with that. You know, impact vests are going to help with that. Our winging population here in Hood River there's a lot of young people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a bunch of old people, but we have a lot of elderly people in their 50s and 60s that access the river. They're very safety conscious, man. They wear harnesses, they wear wetsuits, they wear booties, they wear wing shoes, they wear knee pads, they wear freaking visors. They're the squad. And I respect that, man. Like, hey, whatever it does, like, you don't want to be dying on the river for pride. Like, that's dumb.
No. Yeah. And like we were talking about, it's a whole cascading effect of other people who are there that suffer the most when that happens. So taking those minor precautions, I don't think it's a big deal.
Some guy, a local, a guy in our area, he was just foiling on a normal, like not a big day or anything. It was kind of big, granted, in the river. So he was riding a small, sharper foil. He had like a random turn, foil tip took him in the calf, sliced an artery, needed a tourniquet applied, had to paddle in, like got a tourniquet applied. Didn't have to get life flighted, thankfully, because we like had a surgeon here that could do the surgery, and like he wasn't like bleeding out. And he lost 2 liters of blood, and it was quick and over fast. Like he's all good. Everything, like no nerve damage, like all good. But like that's a quick reminder that for wingers, especially, the hydrofoils are sharp, man. Like it's just something to keep in mind when you're doing this super fun thing that seems like it's like you're floating on a cloud. You just want to make sure you think through a couple things, just a couple things.
Yeah, we're super happy he's okay. I saw that on Instagram, and I saw him at AWSI last year when I was there, and so happy that but there's so many pieces that come into play to make sure he comes home and he lives, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like all our, like a couple people were there that just like really took care of it. What's really crazy is my brother-in-law, so my sister's brother, he was kiteboarding on the sandbar, like in shallow-ish water on a surfboard. And some freak accident thing happened where he came off the surfboard, it flipped over, and he took the thruster fin to the calf. Same thing, sliced his artery into his calf. His friend had to like squeeze it. They tied a tourniquet with a leash. He actually had to be life flighted. He had to have this gnarly surgery, and same thing, he's fine, like nothing too bad, but like near bleed out again. Wow. So that's sketchy.
Yeah. Are there, like, I'm not an expert in wetsuits or anything, but is there anything in the industry right now that's a little bit more cut resistance? Is there any talk of that stuff potentially coming in for foiling? Because that could be something worth looking at.
Yeah, so there is some products on the market right now from, all our main manufacturers. I think that's going to be Ion, Monera, Ride Engine. I'm sure there's some other people that are in this same space where they're going to layer PE board, like polyethylene backer board, inside of like a vest or some piece of wearable that is going to provide you with basically what is impact resistant or stab proof panels. No one has gone so far as to layer that inside of a wetsuit or make that like more tactical than basically just an impact vest with some board in it. But like, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could make like a Kevlar weave wetsuit that is like basically impenetrable. Like, I mean, honestly, bulletproof vests are really, really tactical and awesome. But in places where they don't have guns, like in England, where they have a lot of stabbings and stuff, they wear even gnarlier vests because PSI of a knife is way higher actually than a bullet. So stab wounds are actually, or stabbing is actually harder. So foil vests might be even harder. I don't know.
Potentially.
But yeah, you can maybe layer something like that in a wetsuit. But I think the big concerns are thorax, anywhere you're going to sever arteries, and like freaking throat or face. Like, and so, yeah, I just like, I mean, some people are wearing like, there's one guy in Hood River that wears like a goalie mask, like a face shield.
Oh, wow.
Like,
yeah. Everything's all right. Everything's all right as long as you feel safe and
they got tennis shoes. They got tennis shoes, goalie masks. Freaking who knows? The sup foiling crew is like expanding massively here too. It's out. It's like,
oh, I don't doubt.
It's crazy this summer. What happened from last summer to this summer? It's insane. So like that's a whole nother wormhole of things.
Oh wow, it's so cool. Like I hadn't been there in a long time. It's like windsurfing still lives there. It's insane. Like you see so many.
It's crazy. So cool. Like it's still a thing. And like at the Hook, there's still like I go there to teach my friends how to wing and stuff, you know, and I still see kids learning how to windsurf as young kids, like trying to do water starts in the straps, and like kids putzing around in the Hook. And like the hatchery definitely has a crowd of younger windsurfing people. I would say the average age is 50 for sure, and there's definitely some old dinosaurs, but that's fine. They're still out on the water. And then there's, you know, a young crew of like Wyatt Miller and Tyson Poor and Brian Metcalf and like JP Wilkes and like all these boys who are like shredding, like doing huge forwards, and like it's like really impressive that I can go out on a windy day and be like riding the swell, like, oh, this is so fun, and like these boys are throwing huge forward loops and shit. You're like, whoa, this is a whole nother thing. Yeah, so it's alive and well. I mean, it's definitely a thing here, but I would say winging is dominating. Like there's more wingers than kiters, more wingers than windsurfers. 75% of the days for sure.
Yeah, no, it's such a crazy sport that I don't even know. It took a while to catch on, but it's insane now. Like, so what are you doing with your time now that you're kind of on to the next phase, thankfully, but like raising your son, what else are you doing? Do you work with Sensi? Do you do your own stuff or?
Oh boy. Yeah. So I was a test rider at Slingshot for for 2 or 3 years. I made a job switch, in November to join the design team at Nash.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, I moved into the wing space. My good friend Ewan Jaspin is their kite designer. They have some people doing the windsurf. Like they're a legacy brand. They have a lot of products to touch. They were looking for someone to kind of move into the space. They have some people taking care of the situation, thankfully, because we'll get to that in 1 second. So I got brought on to do the wing design and help with the wing stuff. I'm really passionate about design. I've been doing testing and deep design work, not like actually deep in, but pretty deep. And so these design jobs are really hard to come by, and they're really hard to find candidates for who understand our market and understand the puzzle and understand how it all works and have some, it's a complicated thing no matter how you cut it. It's why we still have the legacy designers like Pat Goodman and Ken Winner, and they know a lot of things and they went through the birth of kiteboarding, so they know how to work through a lot of problems. Two, they are I won't say reluctant, but like I wouldn't say they're lining up to find replacements for themselves, right? Like you don't necessarily want to give everyone your design secrets, right? So like they're hard learned things it's fabric. It's how do you make your shirt make you jump 40 meters into the sky? Like how do you sew something that can do it's such a weird thing. It's 2D to 3D, but then it's like fabric, but it's really complicated. So I joined the squad as a designer because I was like, sick, great opportunity. Mm-hmm. And then 3 days after I started, I smashed into the earth, and I've been in the hospital and dealing with all of that ever since. I've been getting back to work roles probably starting in May. I was starting to take some work roles again. By no means am I working like a 40-hour work week at the moment. And then I was starting to integrate with the team, kind of like I missed all that. I like was supposed to fly to Maui and like meet everybody, but like I was in the hospital. I couldn't do anything. And they were like, you're crazy. You shouldn't come to Maui maybe. And I was like, great.
Yeah.
So they let me recover. It was super, super awesome. And I'm kind of onboarding back into my role. And then the baby popped. And so now I'm on paternity leave for a little bit. And then I'll probably be back in action at AWSI in a couple weeks, because the baby will be kind of like, my parents will be here and we'll have some help. And then we'll see how that goes from there.
Okay.
So awesome. I work for Nash. In my meantime, I tinker in my garage with my sewing machine and try to make weird stuff. Have you seen the latest craze, the Parawing? Whoa!
Yes, I was going to talk to you about
to Parawing. It's evolving so fast. It's crazy. I'm sure everyone will claim they had a vision for this a million years ago, but like about a couple months before the accident, I was a speed flyer. I understood paragliding. Like I've been tinkering in this space. We've been talking about we've been doing wing anchor drops and like, how do we get rid of the wing? We've been exploring these ideas for years at Slingshot. Like, what do we make? How do we get rid of the wings? The foils are evolving. How do we take advantage of just the foils? Then the sup foiling started. And it's like, okay, people don't even want wind sports, but then sometimes they do. So there's like this weird space that's been happening for a couple years. And I had this vision that like, I thought in the next couple years that half of the wingers would be using more paraglider-esque ram air trainer kite. Like I was looking at the peaks, like the Fly Surfer peaks, those single skin kites that they use for foiling. I was like, man, like, why are we not winging with these things? And why are we not why are we not using the efficiencies of ram airs? Ram airs are way more efficient than like race kites. Think of what they're riding in the Olympics. They're not a bunch of LEI kites. They're ram air kites. So surely if you made a badass a ram air wing, it would be faster, but it would be a pain in the butt because it'd fill with water and it'd be like soft, and like, what would it look like? And so that question has been floating around, and the Hawaii 5.0 or the Maui 5.0 guys with their pocket wing first inaugural launch kind of showed people that like, hey, there's something. They've been working on those in Maui. I've seen some friends that are using like drag chutes, like drogue chutes, and people that are using like trainer kites, and like people are doing weird stuff to try to make it happen. So I taking all this data in before the accident, I was like, something's happening here. And then when I woke up from the brain injury, I was like, oh, we have to get in front of this. Something crazy is about to happen. And then everyone's like, you're a crazy person, because I was. And so, you see the BRM one launched like last week or something, and people all over the gorge are just losing their shit. Like everyone's like going out and struggling, and like people are buying them and returning them. And then some people are like duck tacking them. And like some people are like taking them on expeditions, and like, it's getting really weird, really quick, like instantaneously. So I've been making a bunch of crap like that in my garage, like on my sewing machine. Like I don't have the BRM one, but I have one that I can use, and mine doesn't go upwind, unfortunately, because mine isn't like a full fleshed out. I can't sew a crazy thing in my garage. Like I can't make a paraglider in my garage, but I can get up on foil on mine and then make it go away and go on runs with it if I want. I'm going to go this afternoon, try to do like a 3-mile run with it and get real adventurous. Because like, look, sick. Even if they invent the best one, let's say, okay, so let's use the obvious example. Even if Ozone yesterday already had one of these and wrote it and said this is dumb, and then they dusted off their file and like made one in 1 second in their amazing factory, because they have the capabilities of making something significantly a leap beyond what they have. All of the manufacturing techniques of their high end, they make the highest end race paragliders on the market. Like there's no question that they could have this file tomorrow. Who creates the how-tos of this new thing? Who creates the service? Is it the YouTubers? Is it the passionate foil guys who are like I got 200K subs and I'm going to explain to you how to use the pocket wing? Or is it the brands that have to invest money in marketing videos, how-to videos, how to repair, how to use? Like this is a whole category. The last time we created a whole category was winging. Winging was the whole category. Think how long it took to flesh out all of that market. This falls in the same category. Technically, it's still winging, but it's a totally different thing. I worry about like, is someone going to drown with one of these? What happens if it's leashed to you kind of because you don't want to let it go? And like, how do you deal with the let it go or not? Do you let it go and then it sticks to the water and you go get it and paddle to it? Like, what if you're on a 50-liter board? Can you paddle a 50-liter to go get it? What if you let go of it because you can't hold on to it and it hits another person downwind of you and wraps around them and they go flying into the rocks? What if you leash yourself to it and it gets picked up by a wave? I'm sure you've had a kite or something pull you in a wave. Like, what if you don't come up from underwater? What if, do you need a release on this thing? Like, someone needs to answer all these questions before everyone's like, yeah, these are the future. It's like, we have to create a whole thing about it. And so it's fun to make the thing, but it's also fun to think about the complicated questions that this brings to like, what does it do to value? Like, do people think a single skin, lightweight, paraglide-esque looking wing is worth the $1,200 that it's going to cost to get that lightweight material? Or are people going to be like, I could make that in my freaking garage? And then we're going to have like all these bed sheet people. And like, what is this? Where does this complicate things? Like, and you think full circle about this, it's really weird. The second someone tacked it, everyone at my local beach was just like, wow. It was like nonstop about like, and like people are doing weird stuff. You know, they're riding like 45-liter boards on days where they pull the wing away and you see someone going down the river with no paddle and no wing. And you're like, wait, what? How did this guy do this run? It's like really weird. Yeah. And we have a big culture here with the runs. Like the downwind thing is really big. So there's a lot of people doing the shuttling and the running. It's becoming not only a go to the beach and stay upwind sport, which is like ride the swell downwind, go upwind, ride the swell downwind, go upwind. It's now like shuttles. Everyone's doing downwind lap shuttles. So there's always vans running up. Like people are into doing laps. Like everyone yesterday drove out to Rufus to go do like 12-mile runs because the suppers are crazy and they all want to do that. And that's what they did all day.
Oh, wow.
So it's more voyaging. It's more missions. It's more shuttles. So like in my ideal world, you take this ram air thing. I do it already with a conventional wing. I have a little backpack. I wing upwind with my paddle. I pack my wing down in my backpack and I sup back to my car so that I don't need to do a shuttle because I hate waiting for people and I hate doing all the shuttle bullshit. I can go upwind just as fast as they can do their shuttle lap and set the car and do all of that. I hated this in paragliding. I hated all of the I would rather hike when I land, I'm done, than like drive like 20 laps because I hate all the logistics of the driving and the like it just sucks. So for me, imagine the vision right now that is like you throw up this thing, parawing, whatever you want to call it, bed sheet tech, you hook in and they're efficient because they're ram air style kite maybe. And yeah, it fills with water and yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but guess what? It's a pain in the butt no matter what. And you rip upwind on 4 or 5 broad reaches. You find a little piece of swell, you pull the thing down, stow it in your pack, and you go for a 4-mile ride on a board with no paddle, no wing, no nothing. You basically like honestly, let's be honest. What's the best form of foiling?
Yeah, like that free open swell riding.
It's tow foiling. Someone whips you on a jet ski onto a wave. Yeah. You have nothing on you. You're on like a freaking 90-centimeter board. You're like on the fastest foil you own. Like I have the fortunate privilege of spending some time in Fiji. And my favorite thing in Fiji is high tide tow foiling because you get whipped onto these amazing waves that are just mush burgers. They're like, no one would surf it. And they go for like, you get such long rides and you're like, that's the funnest thing. So winging is like, get you in, let go. I'm tow foiling, but not really because the wing's still there. Sup paddling, they say it's better than winging because you don't have a wing in your way. You just have the paddle, but you got to sup a big board unless you're really freaking good and you can like put in the hours that it takes to get on that, like the 7-foot KT boards that are like crazy. You got to balance on. I have friends that have gone down the wormhole. They're riding small equipment. It looks freaking sick. There's this kid McFlowy, that's his Instagram handle. He is shrelping on his board, and it's a big board, but he's making it look really good. But it's not toe foiling. It's still a big board. So if you can take this pocket wing technology situation and get yourself upwind on a 50 or 60 liter mid-length style looking board that's like it's a shrunken sup, so it has the efficiency, and you can get yourself up and onto a situation, guess what? You're on a way smaller board. It's way more fun, and it's like toe foiling. And then for sure, if you're at a wave spot, as long as you're not getting pounded in the shore break and there's like a shelter from the death that these para wings could get yourself in, because when paragliders go in the ocean or water, usually the guy drowns. Like paragliders plus water equal drown. Usually I've crashed in the water several times with my paraglider, and everybody's been like, oh my God, that's so dangerous. But I've been in the water with ram airfoil kites. So like I felt comfortable, but most people don't do well with lines and stuff in the water, and they take on water and they start sinking, and like it can get really bad. So I don't know what the future of this technology is going to result in, but if you're riding in a wave spot, imagine you're like out to the outside, catch a wave, wing thing goes completely away. You're not stowing it in your pack for permanent long downwind voyage. It's out of the way and in your hands, and you're just kind of shredding with this thing in your hand, and then you like pump back out a little bit, throw it back up. I like to call it throw and go, man. That's the category for me. Throw and go.
No, it has such, like my friend John Vu here just got one, and he said there's so much potential, but he was on side-on conditions. It filled with water, and it was a 30-pound bag, and he's like, but those questions that you raised, very valid questions, because
honestly, it's a single skin with a curved leading edge, right? As like kind of double skin in the front of it. Mm-hmm. A lot of paragliders are single, or like can be single skin or double skin like that, right? They all have ways for air to get in, which would be ways for water to get out. I find it interesting that the boys didn't put a single mesh vent hole to drain water. Like I get that they say, oh, normally you just like get the leading edge up because that's how it launches out of the water, and then the water drains out of the back of it. But like the one I have that is not a BRM, whatever, it's a Brandon wing that I made in my garage, it becomes a giant bag of water. You are like, my arms were so tired from just like lifting this bag out of the water. It's like, man. Yeah. So there's a lot to happen really quick. And what's really scary, or not scary, is arms races are interesting, and they don't often benefit the customer, in that the customer gets a bunch of stuff really quick that they have to sort through to find what's the good stuff. The early adopters kind of like take the hard journey and learn. And so the arms race happens, the customers get some stuff, it starts to work. All the brands, I mean, you want to bet how many of them are going to be at AWSI? I know the BRM ones are going to be there. I bet 2 other brands have them immediately. Like I almost guarantee it's going to be off to the races. I know personally that I'm really interested in this space and have been pushing our Nash team to look in this space. I have my own in my garage. We're very interested in what's going on in this rapidly evolving space, and I don't think we're the only ones. So get ready for a whole slew of weird things happening in winging again, I'm sure.
That's exciting as hell, actually.
Oh, it's like, so fun.
I think some of these early adopters, like, they're just so happy to be part of the process, to be honest. Like, it's so cool to get an early version of something and you say, man, I rode like 7 versions and now it's here. Like sometimes it's not even, they don't even care as much, because you're like, you're part of the evolution of this super cool thing that you're so passionate about.
There's like whole kite brands based on that idea. Like the Venture, is it Venture? I think they make a wing now, and they make 2 models of kites. Their whole program was, you pay like a subscription, we send you kites, you give us feedback, and we make better versions and send you those better versions. So you get to see the kite get better as you keep on the program. And they use the pool to like source data to make the kites better. So instead of using like pro kiteboarders to test the kites, they're using the general public or whoever wants to sign up for their program or their brand. and I haven't seen them in the wild very much. I saw one in the wild because one of our people that ride in the KPL, he rides one of their kites. It looked really good, honestly. I was like, oh shit, this kite looks pretty good. So there is a brand that does that, like, be our tester. But there are some people, I agree with you, there are some people in our weird world of foil tech, sailing, leisure sports that love to be a part of the process. That it gives them pride. I hate to use the word ego, but it definitely helps them feel important. And like, you've been to wing beaches and wind beaches around the world. Sometimes there's a beach marshal and he is self-appointed and you're like, oh, that's Bob. And Bob runs this beach. And you're like, who's Bob? Bob will tell you everything about the beach and he'll tell you why your foil sucks and he'll tell you everything. Like, that's wind sports. It's hilarious.
Yeah, definitely. So are you getting stoked for a little AWSI then? I guess it's coming up, and I don't know, it's coming up pretty soon, actually. First week of September?
It's September 6th, I think 4th through the 6th, or maybe it's the 5th through the 7th. It's like that first week of September. I get really excited about this event. One big thing that benefits me as a designer, even though it puts you behind the ball, is you get to see everyone's latest and greatest. Like, everyone's like showing off their wares. It's kind of like cool to see everyone kind of uplift their stuff. It lights a fire under your butt as a brand. You're like, oh man, we got to deal with this, or we got to like go with this. I know personally there's going to be some cool things. I know the guys at Slingshot, I was helping them work on a couple things that before I departed that company. So there's a couple cool things in the pipeline there. I know the Nash team have some amazing stuff in line. Their wings got a big overlift and face haul. So like, there's a lot of cool things going on there. I'm sure the Armstrong boys are going to have something fun. I'm sure everyone has something fun. So that's cool to walk up and down the promenade and strut the show. You know, it's like going to the car show. I used to go, I grew up in Michigan. I used to go to the Detroit car show where all the car people used to show up and wave their wieners around and say like, look at our car. It's better than your car. And like, so it's a little bit like that. I also think it's super, super important for our industry to come together and realize that we're here for what the passion, the love, like the retailers that, you know, like in North America, some of the retailers they don't play very well with each other, right? Like they get mad when someone buys all the closeout stuff and like lowers the price on everything. Like it's a game, right? And so I think it's really good for our whole industry and all the competitive brands to come together and be like, you know what? I love all you guys and I love kiteboarding and wind sports, and like, let's all keep doing this for another couple years. This is a fun, it's better than a vacuum trade show. It's better than like, you know, like it's a really cool thing that I think a lot of people look as maybe, oh, this is a bunch of work. It's cost money for sure to do the booths and all that stuff. And it's like a big promotion. It's a lot, but I think it's really important for our industry to kind of honor ourselves and like honor how much we have to be grateful for, because we get to do our trade show on a beach in Hood River where you can wing out, or like one week of the summer, you can kite and wing out of that, or you can wing out of there anytime you want. You can launch kites off the grass. They had like Jesse Richmond's doing toe ups with a jet ski and like trying to kill himself on the rocks. And like, you know, like it's just, it's really rad. I'm really excited. Yeah. And then, awesome. I'll have a little freaking baby attached to me the whole time. So that'll be sick.
Imagine that young getting taken all that gear and all
the
scenery.
He since he didn't really stop being active during the pregnancy. So I would estimate that the baby probably has 25 to 35 hours on foil via the womb. And then he's already been like out on the spit like 10 times. He's been to the hatchery like 6 times. He's in the mix already. It's sick. He's a Hood River. He's a Hood River local. Like, I'm not a Hood River local. That's like legendary. Like, he has no idea. He's such a lucky little guy.
All right, GWA. He's coming.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard one, right? Like, we live in a place where we have the wind sports, obviously. We have the snow sports where you can go up and do like windells and like hit jumps all summer long. We have gnarly access to like, not gnarly biking, not like Squamish or BC or like that kind of stuff, but we have like pretty rowdy mountain biking. arguably the best whitewater kayaking in the West Coast, or the
Oh,
most
really?
prolific. Like, yeah, the rivers here are really prolific. And so, like, it's kind of gnarly to be like, okay, what scary thing is the little homie going to break all his bones at? Like, maybe
Yeah.
water is the
Yes.
safest one. I hope. I don't
I
know. But, like,
think.
you never want to do what your dad does. Like, I never wanted to do what my dad did. Like, that's lame. So, like, if dad's kiteboarding, he's not going to want to kiteboard. That's lame.
Yeah, you never. It's hard to say.
And when
It's
he's
so
old enough
hard
to
to
kiteboard,
say.
who knows? With the freaking
What's
rate
gonna
of
be there?
with the rate of expansion of the gear right now, who even knows? Maybe it'll be umbrella boarding. It'll be like, instead of a parawing, it's literally will be an umbrella, and you just go like, you open it and it just pulls you, and then off you go. It's like, now
Yeah,
people, dude,
yeah.
now people are just foil driving. They just go out at the hatchery when
Mhm.
it's windy as shit, because there's swell when it's
Yeah.
windy, and they go upwind in the kind of like where it's not wavy on the edge of the river, and then they
Okay.
go downwind, catch a swell, pull up off the foil drive, and then just ride the swell downwind. They just lap themselves with the
Oh.
battery until the battery runs out. And then, like, when I was in Hatteras, like, Matt Nuzzo's doing the same thing. He's like going out in the ocean and just getting himself on like swell, and then like foiling on that. So like, and then you saw the Mr. Bennett's Amp Lab thing is coming out, which is like the little jet board to get you up so you can like prone paddle into stuff. And like, so who knows what the space is going to look like in even 5 years. Like, winging wasn't even
Yeah,
around
that's
5 years
true.
ago. So look at where we're
That's
at now.
true.
Like,
That's true.
look how fast foiling has evolved since winging happened. Like, foiling was happening when kiteboarding. Like, think about where the state of foiling was when all the kite brands were making hydrofoils. You had Lift making really nice race foils for the Olympic fleet people. You had Mike's Lab making really high end foils for people. You had like Liquid Force and Slingshot were making aluminum extruded mass. No one was doing full carbon sets really, unless it was boutique. The wings were really low aspect, focused on easy learning, no really glide because kite has tons of power. Then the surf stuff kind of started happening, and then the wing stuff started happening. And now look at foils. You have high modulus mass. You have multiple mass considerations. You have crazy stuff going on with what's in the mast is crazy. Then the crazy fuselage contraption, all that geometry, all that stuff. Then you have all the stuff that's happening with the glide ratio wings. Like, people are pushing into AR14. The tails are getting crazy. You got the E-foils coming. You got it's like, and that's 5 years. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's so true. It's such a cool time in the industry though, for so much change and so much new. That's pretty sweet.
I think there's never, ever been a better time to get into wind and water sports. There is not only a plethora of great equipment, there's some B stuff out there still. You can buy an Alibaba wing and get a big, I see some here in Hood River, you're like, oh, where'd that come from? But even nowadays, like, even a gong wing, like, they're like really nice. Like, no one, it's hard to get bad equipment at the moment. And there's a plethora of used stuff because everyone learns on big boards and big foils, and then they get told, no, you need an AR10 to have fun. And so then they want high glide and they want new wings, they want a Lula, and now they're going to want para wings. And so, like, the gear turnover is pretty rapid because the arms race is happening pretty rapidly. Therefore, as a new person, when I first got into kiteboarding, kites were $1,000 something dollars. My board was like, it was like $5,000 for me to get into kiteboarding, and I had a discount at a shop, and my mom fronted me a bunch of money, and I was like 19, and I was like, really want it, and I broke so much stuff so quick. I broke my first board so fast, and like, so for me, it was like really, really hard to make it sustainable for me to get into wind and water sports. And this was in 2006. So granted, lots changed since then. But nowadays, if you're a person trying to get into this and you have the internet and a savvy consumer, and you live in like anywhere where you have access to wind and water sports, there's a plethora of gear. And through the COVID surplus thing that happened for mountain bike companies, surfboard companies, like, hey, the surplus thing that's happening in wind and water sports is happening everywhere. It's not hard to find a wing for less than $500, even brand new. They might be last year's wing, but guess what? Even last year's wings are still pretty good. and you can
Yeah,
get
that's
some
true.
cheap gear, and like you don't need to spend $5,000. Well, depends on how many hydrofoils you buy and how many carbon boards you buy and
Yeah.
stuff. But like, I think
Yeah.
the entry bite into the wind sports right now has never been easier to digest, and it's safer than it's ever been. If you look at kiteboarding, it's significantly safer. The kites have tons of
Yes.
D-power. It's easier to jump. It's easier to kite loop. Like it's easier. Two, the winging has offered anyone who's scared of that accelerative kiteboarding situation and access to the water at multiple water entry points that were never accessible by a kite, because you can literally paddle your board out, and you have something that is not physically going to throw you. Like, it is very hard to hold on to a wing to get thrown across the beach. So for
Very
all
true.
those people that
Very
were
true.
concerned about wind sports because they were scared of kiteboarding, they now have access. And they were maybe not into windsurfing because it was too much gear and you had to have a van and a trailer and know how to downhaul and outhaul and like all that. And like, it's hard on the body. Windsurfing's like, from what I understand, I mean, you know how to do it. It's hard. The progression is hard to learn to water, start to jibe, to do. That's hard.
Yep.
Winging is hard too. I think kiteboarding is the easiest one to like, just to get someone up on a board riding with a kite. You can do it in one day if you're diligent.
Yep.
Winging, maybe, who knows when they're going to get a ride on a hydrofoil. That's a big maybe, right? If you have all your tools at your disposal, like you have a boat to tow them, maybe an e-foil to help them, you have wind, you have all the things, maybe you could do it in 2 days, maybe. But windsurfing sounds like you can get someone on a giant board in a tiny sail in like 10 seconds, but to like plane is like really hard, right? So I think winging offers a very non-intimidating entry into the sport. My local beach is filled with young kids, older women, older guys. The demographic at the hatchery and the Laura Jensen, which is our local wing beach here in Hood River, kiteboarding has never looked like this for me. And I've been in kiteboarding for a really long time. It's never been this inclusive. It feels so awesome. Like, it feels so rad. And so I encourage everyone right now, if they have access to this, it's a great time. It's a great time. And you should foil.
Yeah,
Foiling
well
is
said.
amazing. Foiling is
so fun.
It's like, you tell people they should ride powder. You tell people they should get barreled when they're surfing. You tell people they should, like, when I was into paragliding, I'm like, oh my God, you'll never know true freedom until you fly like a bird. You're like, you find your addiction that you have to tell people you'll never be the same after you do this. I remember the first time I carved like the deep end of an 8-foot like bowl on a skateboard and got like pushed into my skateboard and like G'd out. And like, that's one of those feelings that like I love. You can get it on the snowboard in like a bank slalom run. You can get like G'd out on the snowboard, like pushed into the snow. Foiling is kind of like that. It's like one of those sensations that you're like, man, you just got to kind of do it to get it. And you should be doing it. We're alive at a unique time in history. Get yourself some weird carbon or aluminum and fly above the water. Just do it already. It's phenomenal.
We have to. We have to. Well, hey, man, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thanks a lot for coming on. Thanks a lot for sharing. And once again, congratulations for your little one, and looking forward to the future.
Thank you so much. I want to apologize if I am chatty, because since the brain injury, I can't stop talking. And at least at least you're getting a couple things in, but like a couple months ago, you would not get a single sentence in. I would just talk at you for 6 hours. And kind of aggressively too. I'd like kind of like talk at you, like I'd be telling you that you're dumb, and like it was like insane. It's fun to laugh about now. It's kind of hilarious.
I know.
But yeah, so if there's anything that you're just like, oh my God, he went off for 10 minutes about this thing, just cut me. I had to when we're making a documentary, crazy enough, about my brain injury and all this stuff. And like at some points in the documentary, they had to learn that they have to ding me, because they put the camera on me and hit record and would ask me a question, and my answer would be like 25 minutes, and they'd be like,
oh wow.
we gotta edit this, bro. Like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, well, just like ding me. And like my wife dings me. Like people are just like, that's enough. Like boom, you're done. And like I had to like people would have to raise their hands. Like, hello, I have something to say. Crazy. So I just wanted to take one last second before we wrap here to let everyone know two big things. I am super grateful that you had a second to listen, that this mattered to you. I think it's really important that we connect as a community. And I really take that as a big piece to my heart, that like people care and that I can like offer something to people. It means a lot to me. And then the second piece of advice that I want to give to people is hug your loved ones and practice your gratitude every day, because things can happen really quickly, and you never know what life has got in store for you, and you never know what's going to be 1 second from now. And so don't wait. Like, tell people you love them, give people hugs, like be the person that you want to be, shine brightly in the world, because the world needs it. And like, there's no reason not to, because it's short. Life's short. So practice your gratitudes, be appreciative of everything, and have some fun in this wild, crazy situation that our winging is giving us. Like it's get ready for another wild ride. It's going to be a weird one.
Yep. It was going to be fun though. Hey, thanks a lot, Brandon. It was great to get to spend some time with you. And it was nice to chat.